As we have discussed the exclusions list, one is the Tomcat embedded server which got excluded, and as well as the logback classic dependency which got excluded from the starter web. So these steps are very essential for deploying the war archive into the external Java EE server like WildFly. So since we have completed these two exclusions, the one important challenge that we will be facing upon excluding them is we'll be facing an error in the project structure the moment we exclude the Tomcat server. The reason is the Tomcat server, the Spring Boot starter Tomcat server, is the one which carries the dependencies, the libraries for Jakarta EE. So what I mean by Jakarta EE is this is a Spring Boot 3 version, and this is not a Spring Boot 2.x version. It's 3.x version of Spring Boot project. So as we can notice that starting from Spring Boot 3, we have the inclusion of Jakarta EE library instead of the Java EE library. So Java EE library is removed and they have replaced it with Jakarta EE because Java EE is now maintained by Jakarta Corporation. So Jakarta EE library is residing inside this Tomcat, which we have excluded. That means it also it excludes the Jakarta EE because it's a transitive dependency which get excluded upon excluding the Tomcat. So we face a challenge here, as you can notice that there is an error that appears here. So exclusively on the servlet initializer. Before we were not facing that error, but right now it appears that mainly because of the reason of removal of the Tomcat embedded server. Since we have removed the Tomcat embedded server, as I can hover the cursor on top of the error, and it says the type of Jakarta servlet exception cannot be resolved. So that means it's not taking up the dependencies, and it is not allowing the servlet exceptions, and so it is raising an error. As you can notice here, the type is Java Jakarta dot servlet instead of Java X dot servlet. So we usually have Java X dot servlet. So that is now replaced with Jakarta dot servlet, where this dependency this particular library could not be found, and so it is not able to figure out the exception handling that's relevant to the servlet exception within this piece of code. So it raises that error, and in order to ensure that this Spring Boot servlet initializer is recognizing this Jakarta servlet exception class, we need to add that dependency explicitly. So only then we'll be able to resolve this error at this point of time. So initially we never faced this error at the time of creation of the project. That's mainly because we have this pom.xml where there were no exclusion list added onto it, and now there is an exclusion list that's been given, and that too particularly that we have excluded the Tomcat, and we have removed the Tomcat entirely from this project structure, and so it is impacting the servlet initializer class because it is not able to recognize the Jakarta EE which is coming up from this dependency of Tomcat. So what we have to do right now is just go ahead and add another dependency to make sure this particular project is able to recognize the Jakarta EE. So here I'm dropping in the dependency that's essentially required, and that's nothing but the Jakarta library. As you can notice that exclusively I've added the library that's relevant to the Jakarta servlet. So Jakarta servlet, which has the Jakarta servlet API, this servlet API is the one which is available from the Tomcat server. Since we have excluded them, this particular dependency also got excluded. So we need to explicitly include this dependency, and upon including this dependency, now you can notice that there is no error appearing on the servlet initializers. Just now we were having an error notification on top of this class, but now that got resolved, the error got resolved. It's mainly because we need to add this dependency. So in order to make sure that the war gets deployed into the external WildFly server, we have to make these changes. Step one is we need to exclude the Tomcat. Step 2 is to exclude the logback classic. Upon excluding the Tomcat, we face a challenge of the non-presence of the Jakarta Servlet API library, and that reflects the problem inside the Servlet initializer class. And in order to resolve that, we need to include this dependency additionally so that the error will get resolved.